wait until 1:30 just out of courtesy for members of the public who wanted to join and know the meeting time that starts, and then we'll get going. Okay, well, welcome everyone to the regularly scheduled meeting of the Oklahoma City Planning Commission for October the 8th, 2020. I want to thank everybody for joining us for this video conferenced planning
All of this is
meeting.
Alan. Can you hear me?
We can. Mr. Kelly, if you could put your system on mute, that'd be great. We have a few announcements to get going before the meeting gets started. If the video conference is disconnected at any time during the meeting shall be stopped and reconvened once the audio connection is restored. If communications are unable to be restored within 30 minutes, items remaining for consideration on today's agenda will be continued to the next regularly scheduled Planning Commission meeting, which will be held October 22nd, 2020 at 1:30 p.m. by video conference as well. The agenda and documents for today's meeting can be found on okc.gov. And if you need any assistance locating those items or items that were provided to staff for today's meeting in terms of letters of support or opposition, and you need assistance with that, you can call 405-297-2289. Cindy Lakin from City Staff will be happy to assist you. Her email address is Cindy, CINDY .LAKIN@okc.gov. I will provide Cindy's phone number a couple times during the call as a reminder in case you're having technical difficulties. But again, if you're writing, it's 405-297-2289. For anyone wishing to speak about an agenda item or to speak under citizens to be heard, we have not had anyone previously notify staff of the intention of the desire to speak, but I will briefly pause during appropriate times throughout the course of the meeting to allow for public comment and participation. Only one person can be heard at a time, and speakers will be allowed 5 minutes, no more than 5 minutes, in accordance with our bylaws to comment on any item. If the comment is repetitious or is something that we're aware of, I may interrupt, but we certainly want to hear from everybody as it relates to things we need to be aware of. You can use the following items to notify staff of your intention to speak. If you're joining us by phone, *9 on your phone will effectively raise your hand, which will alert staff that you wish to be heard. And *6 will unmute your phone. It will also mute your phone. So *6 to unmute and *9 to raise your hand. If you're on your computer, the short key is Alt-Y to raise or lower your hand, and spacebar to mute and unmute. And we've had varying reports from people with different types of hardware, so you may have to hold your spacebar or just touch it. But believe me, we'll provide time so you can try to alert us to your desire to participate. There will be a roll call every 15 minutes. If we cannot see everyone, my understanding is that all Planning Commission members have agreed to participate by video conference, so they need to remain visible. As a reminder, commissioners, if you have to step away from your computer for any reason, please just be sure and announce that. Even if you're interrupting the meeting, just announce that you're stepping away and then announce when you return. We participate in our voting through a system called PrimeGov. There is 2 members of our commission that will be voice voting today. You'll hear me call on them at times, and then I'll pause for vote and I'll announce the outcome of the items, the vote on each item when it's appropriate. So with that, again, we appreciate everyone joining us. Thanks for your patience as we work through those announcements. It's a little bit technical to hold a video conference meeting, so we appreciate your patience. And with that, we'll move to the first item on today's agenda, which is the receipt of the minutes from the September 24th, 2020 meeting. Can I get a motion on those minutes unless there's discussion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Pennington. I move that we receive the minutes of the September 24th meeting.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? Somebody, anybody?
Claire, second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Pennington and a second from Commissioner Claire to receive the minutes from the September 24th, 2020 meeting. Please cast your votes on PrimeGov when available. Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Highsmith, we're just waiting on your vote.
Mine's not showing up. Can I voice vote on this one?
Go right ahead.
Aye.
All votes have been cast, and the minutes are received unanimously. Next item on the agenda are uncontested continuance requests. I believe we have 3 of those that are not new requests. Is that correct, Mr. Butler?
That's correct. Item 16, SPUD 1252, defer to October 22nd. Item 21, SPUD 1217, defer to November 12th. And item 22, SPUD 1229, defer to December 10th.
Is there anyone who wanted to be heard on any of those 3 items today? Again, just as a courtesy, that's SPUD 1252, SPUD 1217, and SPUD 1229. And I'll pause just a moment, reminding you *9 to raise your hand or Alt-Y to raise your hand if you wish to be heard. Hearing and seeing no discussion, I'll take a motion to continue the items as read.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the continuances be granted as read.
Commissioner Coffey, I second the motion.
Commissioner Coffey has seconded the motion to continue the items. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
All votes have been cast, and those continuances are approved unanimously. Next item are new requests, and I believe we have either 3 or 4 new requests, Jeff.
Yes, we have 4. The first one is item 7, PC 10677, that's been withdrawn. Item 14, PC 10688, that's continued to November 22nd. Item 19, CPA 26, continued to October 22nd. And item 20, PUD 1778, continued to October 22nd.
And just for the purposes of confirmation, item 14, PC 10688 would be continued to November the 12th.
Oh, yes, thank you.
No problem. So just again, as a courtesy for those joining us today that are on the phone, this is PC 10677. That item has been withdrawn, so it will not be heard. CPA 2020-0006, PUD 1778, and PC 10688. If you wish to be heard on any of those items, which are now about to be continued, this is your chance. Star 9 to raise your hand, Alt Y on your computer, and I'll pause a moment. Hearing or seeing no discussion, I'll take a motion on those continuances as read.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the continuances be granted as read.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Claire, second.
Commissioner Clare has seconded the motion. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
aye,
And Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes.
All votes have been cast. And those continuances are also approved unanimously. Next item is our consent docket. These are items that are essentially administrative in nature. There are no known protests, no concerns of staff on the item. They're deemed routine in nature. With that, if we can read those into the record, please, Mr. Butler.
Yes, item 1 is case number C-7214, a final plat of Twin Silos, Section 2, located west of North Council Road and north of Northwest 150th Street. The second item is case number C-7215, a final plat of Nija being a part of, well, that's in the Northwest Quarter section, and the location is south of East Wilshire Boulevard and east of North Coltrane Road. And the third is case number PC 10690, and that is an application to rezone 11207 Northwest 5th Terrace from R1 and R2 and PUD 1283 to R2 medium low density. Item 4 is case number CE 1038, an application to close a 30-foot wide right-of-way for Northwest 3rd Street and to close the east-west alley right-of-way located east of Chartel, south of Northwest 4th Street. And the last consent docket item is number 5, case number CE 1039, application to close utility easements within the Millwood Public School campus. That's east of North Martin Luther King Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Butler. Is there anyone who wanted to be heard on any of those items today? Star 9 to raise your hand on phone and Alt Y on your computer. Hearing no comments or comments from commissioners, I will take a motion on the consent docket.
Mr. Chairman, I move approval of the consent docket as read.
Privet, second.
I have a motion from Commissioner Pennington and a second from Commissioner Privet to approve the items on today's consent docket. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
aye,
Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
All votes have been cast. And those items are approved unanimously. We now are turning our attention to items that require separate vote. So with that, Mr. Butler, please read our first case, which is number 6 today.
Case number C-7213, a preliminary plat of Prairie Estates. And that is located south of Southwest 89th Street and west of South County Line Road.
This is Jared. I'll do a quick intro. This is a site that you've seen before. There was a preliminary plat on this site that was approved in October of 2018. This is a revision of that preliminary plat. They're increasing the density from 108 dwelling units to 147 dwelling units. There will be 7 common areas in this development along with 147 single-family lots. There will be gross residential density of 1.28 dwelling units per acre. Public streets and water improvements are proposed. They will have private septic systems for sewer service. The access to this subdivision will be taken from 3 streets off of Southwest 89th Street. One of the streets will serve 9 of the lots. It is a cul-de-sac street, and then the other 2 entrances will serve the remainder of the lots. They are providing a street stub, I believe, to the south. They have 4 TEs with this one. The applicant is in agreement with all the TEs. Kendall Dillon with Craft and Toll and David Box, I believe, are both on the line to answer any questions if you may have them.
Mr. Dillon or Mr. Box, do either of you have anything to add to the staff's introduction of this item?
No, we'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. I perhaps do want to note, we did receive some calls from some citizens. We did reach out and attempt to get with them, and we're unable to do so. This is one that I'm not sure how many people were on commission a couple of years ago when we got it through, but it's one that now the plat is fully compliant with the PUD that was approved. And again, we'd ask for your approval.
Appreciate that. I just note a couple of things before I turn it over to Commissioner Coffey. We did receive 2 letters of opposition in our packets, which highlighted issues that are typically, protested on items like this. Nothing out of the ordinary. I'd also note that staff points out the design of the preliminary plat is in conformance with the subdivision regulations, as well as with in conformance with PUD 1689. And finally, I'd also note, as Mr. Box pointed out, this was an item that was looks to me to be something that was pretty heavily discussed and litigated when it came through for zoning. The motion to deny, or basically to deny a comprehensive plan, failed, so it was passed. And the zoning for the site, also recommended to be denied, was approved by the Planning Commission on August the 9th, 2018. So with that, Commissioner Coffey, do you have questions of the applicant or staff on this item? This is your ward.
No, I have no questions, and I have not received comment or questions from anyone in that area.
Appreciate that.
That being said, I'm ready to make a motion unless there are other comments or questions.
Well, let's give just a moment here. Other commissioners, are there questions of staff or the applicant? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask, looks like we do have one person out in the public that would like to be heard on this item, at least, that's raised their hand. If you do wish to be heard, *9 will raise your hand, or Alt-Y on your computer. And with that, we do have someone who signed up to speak, if staff could recognize them.
Steven Chavalar.
Hi, sorry. My name is Kate Carney. The name Steven Chevalier is a coworker on this Zoom account. But I
Ms.
did.
Carney, if you could you give us your address for the record, please?
Sure. 3340 Wright Street, WRIGHT, Wheat Ridge, Colorado 80033.
And what would you like for us to know about this application?
So this application is adjacent to mine and my mother's property. That address is 9100 Southwest 89th Street, as well as right down the road, Bob and Nancy Sloan, who also submitted a letter. They're in their 80s, not really knowledgeable about how to get on Zoom. My mother's in her 70s, so also not really able.
We did receive their letter, Ms. Carney, and I did read it, so.
Sure, so some of the concerns there would be the traffic along Southwest 89th Street and requiring a traffic study before allowing this type of density, as well as how that is going to impact emergency response and crime in the area. Another concern is the drainage, floodplain, water issues. If you look at the National Resource Conservation Service soil survey, I'm actually an environmental engineer that designs on-site wastewater treatment systems or septic systems. So I have some great concerns about the soils and the feasibility of septic systems on those lots that are not required to have higher level treatment and pollution of the water table, in which is serving my property to the west that's immediately adjacent, as well as what kind of mitigation is going to be done along the adjacent property line, as the number of lots along that property line is quite heavy. So those are some major concerns. I also noticed in the application that the water tap, don't remember the exact wording, but I believe it said it wouldn't be required to have an ability to connect from the west due to the lot sizes. And I think that it should be required that that connection be available, especially if you're adding this large number of septic systems to the area and the aquifer. And I just think that adding this type of density in this area is going to devalue the properties that are immediately adjacent. The property owners to the south, Bob and Nancy Sloan delivered the notice to, they never got notice of this hearing. I actually requested records September 24th from the department electronically and never received those documents. So just ask that this density be denied.
Ms. Carney, we appreciate your comments. There's a lot there to take in. I'll try to address just a few of the points because they're very, very commonly brought up. ODEQ has established half-acre lots as a minimum size for certain types of septic systems. These lots are obviously larger than what would be required by DEQ. As it relates to the traffic and the crime and the property values, some of those things are things that we really, the traffic being excluded from that, but like crime and property values are things that we really don't consider just because typically those are not things that can be proven to be caused by the developments. The traffic issue certainly would have been discussed by the Planning Commission when they approved the zoning back a couple of years ago. I admit that was just before my time on the commission, but certainly that would have been discussed. And when they zoned this property for residential use, they would have known exactly what they were allowing, which was the development of single family homes at this density. That's specifically true because it was done in a PUD. And so all the items would have been specifically negotiated by the applicant and the Planning Commission at that time. Your concerns are not unique. I don't want you to think that it's not something that as a commissioner that I don't take account of. I do when I review these packets and these applications. But as I said at the outset, we're told by staff, this conforms to our city's subdivision regulations and it conforms to the underlying PUD, which makes at this stage of the development process difficult, at least for me as a commissioner, to go back and challenge whether or not it was appropriate. It was deemed appropriate then, and the developer is simply pushing forward with a plan to build the lots on the property as they outlined in their zoning application. So I don't know if other commissioners want to add additional comments there or thoughts, or if we have anybody else from the public that wants to be heard. Is there anybody else that wants to be heard on this before I ask commissioners to weigh in? Again, just as a courtesy, it's *9 to raise your hand or Alt-Y. Hearing and seeing none, I'll turn it over to the commissioners for additional comments. Does anybody have any comments on this one or thoughts? Hearing none, Commissioner Coffey, it's your show.
I would recommend approval of C-7213, the preliminary plat for Prairie Estates.
I have a motion to recommend to approve the preliminary plat of Prairie Estates, C-7213. Do I have a second?
Second.
That second came from Commissioner Pennington. So I have a motion and a second to approve C-7213. Please cast your votes when available. And Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
All votes have been cast. And that application is approved unanimously. Ms. Carney, I would encourage you on the drainage issue, which I neglected to address in my comments. There are requirements during the development process that the developer has to follow in accordance with city ordinance for how they protect the site from drainage and runoff and erosion control and things of that nature. If for any reason during that process you feel like those items are not being cared for properly, certainly alert the city to that, and code enforcement can look into it. Next item on the agenda, because item 7 was continued, is item number 8. Mr. Butler.
Case number PC 10689, an application to rezone 13335 Northeast 50th Street from R1 to AA.
This is JJ Chambliss, Development Services. I'll give a brief introduction. This is a 10-acre site on the north side of Northeast 50th Street, just east of Hiawassee. It's going from R1 to AA with the intent to permit agricultural uses and include a medical marijuana grow. Staff found to be in conformance with the rural medium land use typology and recommend approval. And Ray Little represents the applicant.
Mr. Little, do you have any additional comments that you'd like to add to staff's introduction of your item?
No, I just want to say good afternoon. And if you guys have any questions, I'm here to answer.
Okay. Thank you very much. Is it Mr. Edwards or Mr. Little?
It's Mr. Little. Mr. Edwards is actually my partner, but I'm on here too. So I figured I'm actually the property owner. So I figured I'd get on and say hi.
Okay. I just want to make sure I refer to you correctly. I'm staring at your name. So
no problem.
On this one, this is Ward 7. Commissioner Pennington, do you want to lead us off here? I don't have any initial comments.
Sure. I will say that I visited with Councilwoman Nice about this. I think we're both in support so long as there is continued support from the neighbors, and it sounds like there is. So I think that it's a good application, and I intend to support it.
Okay. Well, let's find out if members of the public have any comments about it. Is there anyone here that wants to be heard on this item today? Members of the public, this is your opportunity. *9 to raise your hand, Alt-Y on your computer. Hearing none, I'll ask the commission if there are any other comments from commissioners on this item. Hearing none, Commissioner Pennington, I think we're ready for a motion unless you're going to talk about it more.
Perfect. Mr. Chairman, I move approval of item 8.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second. Commissioner Highsmith.
I have a second from Commissioner Highsmith. So a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on PC 10689. Please cast your votes when available. And Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
All votes have been cast. And that application is approved unanimously. Good luck, Mr. Little.
Thank you, guys. Have a great day.
Item 9.
And case number UD 1256, an application to rezone 3610 North Chauchel Avenue from R1 to SPD 1256.
Yeah,
Commissioner Highsmith, are you going to recuse on this item?
Yes, sir. I'm going to jump in. I'm going to recuse. This is obviously our firm that's representing the applicant. So I'm going to stop my video and recuse.
Perfect.
Okay, this is a single-family lot located at the northeast corner of 35th and Chartel. It's going from currently zoned R1 to a spud with an R2 base. It's developed with an existing home on the back of the lot, and the request is to add another single-family home on the front of the lot. Staff found it to be in conformance with the urban medium land use topology and recommends approval with no TEs. Klaus Ryman Phillip is the applicant.
Klaus, are you with us today?
Yes, can you hear me?
I sure can. Do you have anything that you want to add to staff's introduction of your item?
I do. Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you, JJ, for that intro. The one thing that I would add is I actually commissioned a survey on this lot. There's some discrepancy on the assessor website on lot width, and I wanted to make sure that we got the setbacks right, made sure that everything that's shown in the MDS and on the site plan, reflects the actual site condition. So I had a survey conducted. I got it on Monday, and I made some modifications to the SPUD language based on that survey. Specifically 3 items, and I discussed this with city staff so I could read it into the record, and then we could make the adjustments to the master design statement should it be approved here. But the one change is the front setback. I had it at 15 in the original SPUD language. I determined that it was in fact 25 feet based on the neighboring house. So I want to increase the front setback to 25 feet. The side setback, we want to reduce it from 8 feet to 5 feet to match the condition of the house to the north. And then the lot size, reduce it from what we had previously of 2,500 to 2,250. That would allow for us to split the lot in the future if my client wanted to sell those off individually at some point. So.
Okay, thank you very much for that. This is in Ward 2. Commissioner Powers, this is you. So do you want to lead our discussion here?
Well, this is really kind of a simple SPUD to accomplish a good goal. They have a house that they're going to move as a result of another development over north of the Cowin. And the house is, very similar to the houses in this neighborhood architecturally. It's not going to look at all odd. I have to tell you, when Klaus first contacted me about this, it took me a minute to figure out. I drive by this corner, dozens of times a week. And the way the fence is set up and everything, I had never quite focused on the fact that this, sort of side yard to the existing house is actually a full lot. I don't know whether the existing house was eventually something else or whether this is really the way this was developed. It's hard to tell. But to put another house on this corner is a great way to, save the housing stock that they need to move off of the site that they're developing over by Cowin. The location here is perfect. They're going to be able to meet the visual setback along 35th Street, which is lovely. Architecturally, it's going to fit right in. I think this is a big win-win, so I'm all in favor of it.
That's great. Thank you very much. Other commissioners have questions for the applicant or staff on this one? Hearing none, I'll ask if there are members of the public here with us today that wish to be heard. This is SPUD 1256. *9 on your phone will raise your hand. Alt-Y on your computer will do the same thing, and I'll pause just a moment. Hearing or seeing none, I don't have any comments on this. Klaus, is this the changes that you referenced? Those are in your most recently submitted master design statement, correct? You're on mute, just so you know.
Sorry, that is officially revision 2 dated October 5th, 2020. And I believe I sent all of the commission that updated master design statement, and staff should have that as well. So
that sounds good enough for the record for me. Commissioner Powers, if you're ready to, feel free to make a motion at this point.
I'll move approval of item number 9, SPUD 1256.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Hinkle. So I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1256. Please cast your votes when available.
I didn't mean to click that. Somebody can correct that second for me.
They're working on it, so we're good. Okay, voting is available. Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
I vote aye.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
And Commissioner Highsmith recused himself from this item, so all votes have been cast. And the application is approved unanimously. Good luck with your project.
all right, appreciate it. Thanks.
Item 10.
Item 10 is SPUD 1253, an application to rezone 4500 South Luther Road from AA to SPUD 1253.
This is a 1 acre site that's located at the southeast corner of 44th Street and Luther Road. It's going from AA agriculture to a Spud with a RC, which is rural commercial base. And the intent is to permit a martial arts studio. Staff found it to be in conformance with the rural low LUDA, recommends approval with 2 TEs that I believe the applicant agrees with. And the applicant, Michael Grimes, is on the line.
Mr. Grimes, are you with us today? Apparently, he's raised his hand. Staff, if someone could recognize Mr. Grimes.
There we are. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mike Grimes. You see the project that we're doing, we'd like to accomplish. We do concur with technical evaluations from the staff study with two additional requests. First request is to allow pervious parking for the small parking lot that'll be in the front and just to the side of the martial art building. Additionally, to allow the construction material, this is a 40 by 60 metal frame, painted metal frame building with brick wainscoting on the front. The only view that you can see from the public side on the Luther Road. And those are our only two other requests. Otherwise, all T's are agreed.
Mr. Grimes, if you could real quickly, could you give us your address for the record, please?
My current address, sir?
Yes, sir.
2008 Northeast 25th Street in Moore.
Okay, thank you very much. So just to be clear, so I want to make sure I understand it. You're adding two additional requests for your application. What was the one on parking?
To allow pervious parking.
Okay.
Sir?
Okay, so pervious paving for the parking.
Paving, yes, yes, sir.
And then the other one dealt with your architectural regulations, your wall finish, and what specifically are you asking for there?
Well, in the staff package, it talked about the building needing to be 70% alike from the adjacent other buildings, which are all residential. So essentially trying to make a martial art building look like a residential house. Didn't seem practical, though. We tried to we've done all that we can to make the building look very professional. In keeping, there are lots of trees that surround it, in keeping with the overall nature of this rural but growing area.
Well, just to be clear about what you've committed to in your application indicates that you will use a minimum 70% brick, veneer, masonry, glass, ephes, rock, stone, stucco, wood, architectural, concrete, steel, or other similar finish. And
yeah, I don't think his plan shows that either. That's what I was going to say.
Well, I should probably speak up here. I talked to the applicant. Well, was it yesterday or the day before, Michael?
Yes, yesterday, sir.
Yeah, and he called me to discuss this because Curtis sent him my way specifically. I'm not sure. Mr. Grimes provided me with some additional exhibits, which I sent to Curtis to get to all the rest of the commissioners. I'm not sure if everybody got that. I'm thinking no, but it had a couple site plans which I requested. Obviously, you know, these aren't official site plans, but they helped me understand what their intent was with the Spud, and he talked to me about specifically the metal panel that they're requesting to use on the building, which would not be you know, a part of their current language. It's essentially, you know, a pre-engineered metal panel product that frankly is I find very commonly used on a lot of you know, projects in these types of rural settings. I find it appropriate, although I know it's technically not part of our typical language for these types of regulations. And frankly, you know, I'm not trying to open this up, the can of beans up here today, but I do think, you know, it's the question of these architectural finishes is something that we'll obviously, you know, need to discuss during our zoning code discussions and updates, because I'm not sure that we can subjectively say, you know, in this regard, in my opinion, that, you know, this metal panel is somehow less architectural than another. We've used a very similar type, you know, metal panel on projects that I'm very proud of. So to me, this is not a big deal. I'm happy to, at least for me, I feel like it's appropriate, and I'd be happy to support the application with the change on that language, noting that, you know, he's meeting the landscaping standards, which for me is the more important part of what will beautify this site and have it fit into its context. And that's, again, that's after talking with the applicant, getting some additional exhibits, and And that's my opinion after having that discussion.
This Commissioner Powers, do I understand that these exhibits though are not binding in any way? They're not committing to a particular type of metal?
That's fair. What he sent me, and that's part of why I wanted to get it disseminated to everybody so that we could work through those questions. I think if he'd be willing to, well, I don't know. I don't know if there's a way to look at those today, bring them into the record and discuss, but if so, obviously that'd be helpful.
Yeah, I'm not, those exhibits were not circulated to me. I don't know if other commissioners received them and I just missed it, but I don't recall receiving additional exhibits.
I did not.
As the applicant points out, we had this discussion yesterday.
Yeah, that's fair.
And I forwarded it to Curtis at some point during the day. It was probably later in the day, and so I definitely don't put blame on him for that. But yeah, it was a
Commissioner.
I just found it in the junk mail. I don't know what's doing there, but
One thing staff would add is this is in a rural area where you're going to find barns and outbuildings and all kinds of metal buildings. So we really have no objection. I think the language in the Spud was something that was suggested for the applicant when he submitted. But we have no objection to metal buildings in a rural area like this.
yeah. And I believe, Michael, you said 3 foot of wainscoting on the front too, right? A brick.
That's correct. We wanted to make it a professional looking building.
Right.
And the wainscoting was going to help with that, with some large windows for lighting. I might also add that almost directly across the street on Luther, there is another standing 40 by 60 building. It's a bit taller, a bit bigger, that the user is using for cultivating marijuana. It's zoned as AA, but the building is there. And you're right, there are many of these kind of buildings in this area for workshops and for additional garage space and all kinds of other uses.
Fair enough. Thank you very much, Mr. Grimes. Other commissioners have comments on this or thoughts?
No, I'm in support of it. I'm just concerned that we get the MDS right, so he doesn't get stuck with something that he's not expecting to be.
Yep, no, I think that's right. The one thing I'll add that I visited about a little bit with staff, Mr. Grimes, in your summary of your application, the way you've laid out your uses, or the way your uses were laid out in my staff report, one of the two, make it a little confusing for me. It says that you want to, it's an RC, rural commercial district base, and the following uses shall be permitted. 8300.1, which is administrative and professional office, 8250.14, which is low impact institutional, 8300.52, which is medical services general, 8300.53, which is medical services restricted, and 8300.58, personal services general. You went on to basically say some other uses are prohibited, which are all other RC uses. And then you go on to say that, but we want these two uses too to be permitted, 8300.55, participant recreation, and 8300.63, which is retail sales and services. I don't have any objection to any of those use units, but I think just for the sake of clarity, I think we should just amend the uses to be permitted as you've outlined, which makes it very clear that the rest of the uses are prohibited. Those are the uses you'd be allowed to have, other uses you wouldn't. Is that okay with you?
That's just fine, sir. Thank you.
Okay. Commissioner Privet, you have any objection to that, or I don't want to?
No, not at all. That clears it up quite a bit.
Okay. And then the pervious paving thing, just to kind of talk about some of the changes that have been discussed. There's some language in our staff report. I can't recall which item it is on today's agenda that pervious paving is discussed. It requires like a concrete border around it. It basically helps contain the pervious paving. Any objection to that?
No, sir.
Okay. So we could essentially incorporate staff's language on its way to council with the pervious paving language that we see consistently throughout applications. JJ, does that seem suitable for you?
Yes, we'll clean up the uses to keep the uses he wants and make it more clear, and include our pervious paving statement before it goes to council.
Perfect. So the only thing that leaves us with, unless I'm forgetting something, is just the exterior architectural. And I think what we should do there, Mike, is just add a TE that specifies that metal panel veneer shall be permitted, but shall require a insert footage of brick or stone wainscoting. I don't know whether you want to say 3 feet, 4 feet. I don't know what you want to say, but I think that's probably the best way just to solidify what we intended as we kick it to council.
Okay. I was just thinking 3 foot on the front, just like Michael was requesting. I think that'd be good.
Okay, so 3 feet of rock or brick veneer along the street fronting sides of the building. Is that
On Luther, yeah.
on
Yes,
Luther?
sir.
Facing Luther.
Any objection to that from other commissioners or concerns about that from staff? Hearing none, I'll ask if there's anyone here from the public that wanted to be heard on this item today. You can push *9 on your phone to raise your hand, or Alt-Y on your computer. We'll do the same thing. I'll pause just a moment. Also enter a public service announcement. If you are having technical difficulties during today's meeting and you need assistance, 405-297-2289 is a number for staff, and they can give you some support. We want to make sure we hear from you if you want to be heard. But hearing nobody today, Mr. Privet, it's your show. If you're prepared, I'll let you make a motion.
And I will make the motion to approve SPUD 1253 with subject to 1 and 2 TEs, adding another 3rd TE concerning the veneer of the building, metal and 3 foot wainscot.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Commissioner Pennington. So I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1253, adding a TE number 3, which shall allow metal panel veneer on the building, but shall require a 3-foot brick wainscoting along the Luther side of the structure. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
All votes have been cast. Oh, Commissioner Pennington, we still need your vote. There it is. All votes have been cast. And that application is approved unanimously. Best of luck, Mr. Grimes, with your project.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you, everybody.
Yep. Item number 11.
11 is case number SPUD 1254, an application rezone 8820 West Hefner Road from PUD 1057 to SPUD 1254.
JJ?
This is a 1-acre site on the south side of Hefner Road, just east of County Line Road. It's in a current PUD, and we're going to an SPUD with a C3 base to permit a veterinary clinic. Staff found it to be in conformance with the urban low land use topology. Recommends approval with 3 TEs that the applicant agrees with, and Gerald Gamble is the applicant.
Mr. Gamble, are you with us today?
I am. I'm here today.
Do you have anything you wish to add to
Thank
staff
you.
introduction of your item?
No, we're taking the same PUD in existence and just adding 1 use. And then, as I understand it, the staff wanted to delete the use 8300.36, which is fast food services with drive-in, which we agree with. And I agree with the other 2 technical evaluations too.
That's great. One other question I had, that staff's request on that, Mr. Gamble, is associated with a desire to keep drive-through order windows away from, neighborhoods when they're in super close proximity. And your site here borders a neighborhood on 2 sides. One of the other things in your master design statement, along with other development regulations, is that the dumpsters shall be prohibited within 30 feet of residential. Do you have any objection to lengthening that to 50 feet?
No, not at all.
Okay, I'd like to add that TE unless Commissioner Claire, I believe this is your award, unless you have some objection to that.
I do not.
Okay. Other commissioners have questions for the applicant or staff on this one? Hearing none, I'll ask if anybody from the public would like to be heard on this item today. *9 will raise your hand on your phone, Alt-Y on your computer. I don't see anyone. Commissioner Claire, this is your turn, my friend. The only thing we would be adding is the 4th TE to extend the dumpster to 50 feet. Other than that, it's ready to go, I think.
Yeah, I don't have any further questions or comments, and so if there's no further discussion, I'm ready to make a motion.
Go right ahead.
All right, I move approval of SPUD 1254 per the TEs and adding TE4 that dumpsters shall not be constructed within 50 feet of adjacent residential properties.
Perfect. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Privet, second.
I have a second from Commissioner Privet. So I have a motion and a second to recommend approval of the City Council on SPUD 1254. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes.
All votes have been cast. And the application is approved unanimously. Good luck, Mr. Gamble.
Thank you very much.
And Scott, I'm going to jump in and note that I'm going to be recusing myself on the next item as well. Again,
Understood. Thank you very much.
Yep. Okay. Good.
Yeah, item 12 is SPUD 1257, an application to rezone 2129 Northwest 31st Street from R1 to SPUD 1257.
This is a 0.32 acre site on the north side of 30th Street, just west of Pennsylvania, currently developed with a church. It's currently zoned R1, and we're going to a SPUD with an R1 base to permit youth services and a youth shelter. Staff found to be in conformance with the urban medium land use topology, recommends approval with 4 TEs. The applicant wants to make a slight modification to TE2 that we've talked about, and we're fine with that, and he agrees with the other 3. And Klaus Ryman Phillip is the applicant.
Klaus, you're back. Be sure and give us your address and then add anything you want to about this one.
Yeah, Klaus Roman Phillip, 325 Northwest 25th Street, and I am representing CC Youth Services, and Jamie Caves, their director, is on the call as well, if you have any questions for her. But essentially, they're currently operating about a block away in Church of the Open Arms on the corner of 31st and Penn. And this rezoning application will give them the opportunity to move essentially out of the basement into their own facility at the site in question. And I'll just add, you know, we took a lot of effort to reach out to the neighborhood and talk to neighbors about this project, and I'm happy to report that we had overwhelming support. We went door to door, knocking on neighbors' doors to kind of share with them what we're planning for this site. And yeah, we've received a lot of positive feedback. I think we've submitted a few of those letters of support to you all as well. So yeah, we look forward to your questions and your support.
Yeah, I would note we did receive a number of letters of support. If I'm counting my pages correctly, I think it's 7. So just to note that for the purposes of the record. This is Ward 2. So Commissioner Powers, do you want to lead our discussion on this?
I'll be happy to do that. This is a really wonderful project. It's providing much needed services to homeless youth and parenting youth. These kinds of services really have to go where they're needed. You know, they have to be able to serve the population where it exists. I have to confess, I was frankly very surprised to learn of the existence of this facility. But they've been operating, as Klaus said, very nearby in the basement of a church, which they've outgrown. The fact that they had really overwhelming, as he said, support for this application, I think is a real testament to how well they have managed their work at that location and, you know, prevented it from becoming any kind of a hardship or a difficulty or an imposition on the neighbors. The site itself is kind of a forgotten little parcel with a sort of sad little church building on it. it's the kind of building that you could see sitting vacant for a long time and just falling into disrepair. And, the fact that it is being slightly repurposed for, very much the same kind of community service use as the church was, I think is a wonderful thing. This is really a much needed facility, and I'm very pleased with it. They have met, they've met with Councilman Cooper. He's very supportive of this. And so I think it's a wonderful thing, and I give it my wholehearted support.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Powers. Do other commissioners have questions or for staff or the applicant on this item? The only thing that I took note of is just that staff recommends in the report that sidewalks be required. Is there some objection to that clause?
No, yeah, I don't see that as a TE, but no, I think we're probably intending to put sidewalks in front anyway. There is
Okay.
some, actually, on that note, I think there's some plan, and I need to go back and look at this from the city side, larger plan to add sidewalks along 30th. And, whatever we did sidewalk wise or whatever the city has planned for 30th, we want that to, relate to what they're, what they're planning for that. So we don't have a problem with adding sidewalks, but we'd also want it to be, and kind of similar to what the city's planning or
Yep.
in concert
I
with
think
that.
I
So
think
I'm not
adding
sure
it
how-
as a TE, as you started to suggest, is probably the easiest way to do it. And if the city's going to install the sidewalks, then great. And if you
Right.
have to install them, then fine.
Sure.
There was, staff alluded to something about the TEs you wanted to change, and I'm not sure that I caught what that change was. I may have missed it.
Yeah, and I'll read it. It's probably good to read it into the record anyways. So TE number 2 currently reads as specify in master design statement that multifamily residential and emergency feeding services are associated with and accessory to the youth transitional program. And what we would like to change is to change it from to the youth transitional program to youth support services. And it might seem like a small and significant change, but youth transitional program was just, very specific to one aspect of what they provide as a service. And we just wanted it to kind of relate more broadly to their youth services, if that makes sense. So just a small, it doesn't really change the function of that TE, I guess, just a little bit of a wording.
Okay. And one final thing, just to clarify for anybody in the public before we hear from anyone, the applicant or the TEs, excuse me, suggest that we set a maximum number of dwelling units. You've requested 16. Commissioner Powers doesn't have an objection to that. I don't want to speak for the commissioners. I don't have an objection to that. Is that the number you'd like to use for the purposes of discussion?
Yes, yeah, 16 is what we would provide for that, correct.
Okay, so essentially just to confirm for both Commissioner Powers and the rest of the commissioners and the public, TE1 will be limited to 16 units. We'll add that. TE2 is really just changing the last 2 words from transitional program to support services. And we're adding TE5 to require sidewalks. So with that, I'll ask if there are commissioners, other commissioners who have thoughts on this. I'll pause just a moment. Hearing none, I'll ask if members of the public today wish to be heard on this item. This is SPUD 1257, and that's *9 on your phone to raise your hand or Alt-Y on your computer. And I'll pause just a moment. Seeing or hearing none, Commissioner Powers, I think we're ready for a motion.
I would move approval of item number 12, SPUD 1257, including some slight variation in the wording of TE number 2 to read youth support services rather than youth transitional program, limiting the number of dwelling units to 16, and adding a requirement that sidewalks be constructed, I would say, in coordination with the city's plans for sidewalks in the area.
That sounds good.
JJ, are you comfortable from the staff? You're nodding yes, so I'll stop there.
Yep.
So
Second.
with that, I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Privet, second.
I have a motion and a second from Commissioner Privet to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1257, subject to the TEs as amended and read into the record. Please cast your votes. Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
And Commissioner Highsmith recused himself from this item, so he will not be voting. So all votes have been cast. And the application is approved unanimously. Good luck with your project on this one.
All right, thank you.
Item 13.
Item 13 is case number SPUD 1258, application to rezone 1615 Northwest First Street from R2 to SPUD 1258.
This is a 0.16 acre residential single-family lot on the north side of Northwest First, located between Kentucky and Indiana. Currently zoned R2, and we're going to a spud with an R2 base. There's currently a duplex developed on the front of the property, and this will be to add a single-family residence in the back. Staff found it to be in conformance with the urban medium land use topology. Recommends approval with 2 TEs that the applicant agrees to, and the applicant is on the line.
I'm gonna mess that up.
I thought I'd let him introduce himself.
Yeah. I should have played that cool. Is the applicant with us?
Yeah, I'm here. Do you have me?
Yes, give us your name and address for the record, sir.
Terry, last name Floor, Flaugher, 4409 Rock Canyon Road.
Thank you for being with us today, Mr. Floor. Is anything you want to add to your item for after staff's introduction?
No, like I said, we've had 2 emails from your office requesting changes to our master plan, which we agreed to. And aside from that, I think this is a win-win for the city as far as updating this area and providing residences in this area that will upgrade the location.
Excellent. So you are in agreement with the 2 TEs as written?
Yes.
Fantastic. Commissioner Highsmith, this is your ward. Do you have questions or comments for the applicant or staff on this one?
No, sir. I didn't even take the time, to be honest, to reach out on this one, because to me it made a lot of sense and seemed like an appropriate density add for an area that's needing a lot of love and investment. And so I have no problem with it. I'm happy to support the application today, but if anybody else has any comments, would love to hear it.
Fair enough. Other commissioners have questions for staff or the applicant? Hearing none, I'll ask if members of the public who are with us today wish to be heard on this item. As a reminder, *9 on your phone to raise your hand, or Alt-Y on your spacebar, or I'm sorry, on your computer. Spacebar is what you use to unmute. Hearing and seeing none, I think we are ready for a motion, Commissioner Highsmith.
Well, I'll make a motion to recommend approval to City Council on Spud 1258, accepting all TEs. There you go.
Fair enough. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Pennington has seconded the motion, so I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1258, subject to the technical evaluations as they appear in the staff report. Please cast your votes when available. Commissioner Powers, how do you vote on this one?
Aye.
And Commissioner Hinkle?
Yes, please.
All votes have been cast. And the application is approved unanimously. Good luck with your project, sir.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your help in this.
Item 14 has been continued. Item 15.
Item 15 is case number SPUD 1255, application to rezone 500 South Mustang Road from PUD 287 to SPUD 1255.
This application is for a 2-acre site. It's on the east side of Mustang Road, just south of Reno, going from an old PUD to a new spud with a C3 base. Staff found it to be in conformance with the urban low LUDA. Recommends approval with 2 TEs. The applicant agrees with those, but would like to amend TE2 regarding the signs that we requested 1. He would like a 15-foot, 150 square feet. And David Box represents the applicant.
Mr. Box, do you have anything you want to add to staff's introduction to this item?
Yeah, briefly, on TE1, we do agree to the single point of access. However, we would like to revise the SPUD to allow for that single point of access to be a 3-lane access. That way you have one lane that could turn right onto Mustang, one lane that could be in the middle that would be left, and then the far southern would be a kind of right in. So we're happy to reduce it down to 1, but we would like it to be a 3-lane entrance. Mustang Road is a state highway, carries a lot of traffic. We think that having a 3-lane entrance will be beneficial, not only to the site, but also to traffic up and down Mustang Road. On the signage, if you look at signage as it exists, not only in the built environment along Mustang, but also with the approved zoning that exists along Mustang, reducing it down to 1, but going up slightly to 15, the 15-foot tall sign that we want is still on the lower end of signage that is allowed and permitted up and down Mustang. If you look at our site plan, we have the ability to have 5 separate buildings, and within each building, potentially more than 1 user. So we do think we need some element of height to be able to properly advertise the businesses that may go in here. So again, if you look at the signage allowed and built on the ground out there, we think that what we are asking for in a 15-foot tall sign is reasonable. PUD 287, which is what this site is currently zoned, actually allows signs from 25 feet to 40 feet. So really, we're going down from what could be built the way I read the PUD today. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions and ask for your approval.
Mr. Box, what is the size of this site?
The size of the site is just over 2 acres.
Okay. And that's just the zone site, not the full PUD 287.
Yeah, the PUD 287 at one point was, I think, in excess of 100 acres. It's been chopped up over the years, but it was a very large PUD at inception back in, I think it was 87 when it was approved.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. This is Commissioner Coffey's ward. Commissioner Coffey, do you have questions of staff or the applicant?
No, I drive by this site frequently. It's a very progressive, growing area, of course, servicing a growing residential area. I think the request for the increased signage is appropriate. There are many signs in that area that are more along the lines of 15 by 150. The 3 lanes in terms of entrance and egress makes a lot of sense considering the high traffic on Mustang Road. And I would support the applicant.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Coffey. Do other commissioners have questions of staff or the applicant on this one? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask if there are members of the public with us today that wish to be heard on this item. This is your opportunity. *9 on your phone or Alt-Y on your computer. Okay, hearing or seeing none. Commissioner Coffey, I think we're ready for a motion. Just to confirm, the way I understand it from the applicant, we'd be amending TE1 to state 1 3-lane driveway shall be allowed from South Mustang Road. And TE2 would be amended to allow a 15-foot high sign with 150 square feet. Is that correct, Mr. Box?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Commissioner Coffey, I think we're ready for a motion if you're ready to make it.
I move, or I recommend approval of SPUD 1255 with the amended technical evaluation.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second, Commissioner Highsmith.
Commissioner Highsmith has seconded the motion. So I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on SPUD 1255, amending the technical evaluations as read into the record. Please cast your votes when available. And Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Okay, all votes have been cast. And that application is approved unanimously.
Thank you.
Good luck on the project. Let's see, item 16 has been continued. Item 17.
17 is PUD 1779, and it's an application to rezone 13654 Southwestern Avenue from PUD 1229 and PUD 1308 to PUD 1779.
Thank you, JJ.
This is a 9.5 acre site located on the east side of Western, just south of 134th Street. We're combining two existing PUDs into a new PUD with an O2 base with the intent to permit the construction of the new MAPS Senior Wellness Center number 4, in addition to a public park that would front the pond to the east. Staff found it to be in conformance with Urban Law LUDA, recommends approval with 2 TEs, and Johnson and Associates represents the applicant.
Somebody with us from Johnson today?
Yes, sir. Tim Johnson with Johnson and Associates, 1 East Sheridan Avenue, Oklahoma City.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Anything to add to staff's introduction of this item?
Just that we agreed to the 2 TEs, and we'd be happy to answer any further questions.
Fair enough. Commissioner Hinkle, this is your ward, my friend. Do you have any questions of the applicant or staff on this?
I can't wait for this project to get started. Long time coming, so I'm in full support.
Yeah, what a great addition to Ward 5. I hope it gets as much use there as my mother seems to get out of the one in Ward 8. So I think she single-handedly keeps that one in business, I'm pretty sure, her and her friends. So,
Yes, sir.
Commissioners, other questions or comments on this one? Hearing none, I'll ask if there are members of the public.
Mr. Chairman.
Oh, yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry.
No, yes, ma'am.
I did wonder if Mr. Johnson or staff could tell me what PUD 1748, which is directly across Western, provides for that frontage.
I am not sure off the top of my head.
You know, I hate to step out on a limb here, and staff may be able to convert. I'm almost sure we saw that application, Janice, and it may even go back to board, but I want to say that might even be self-storage.
No, I think it's got zoned to put in a strip mall of sorts. It's at the
Well, I
end.
thought that was what was on the north side. On the south side of that street, I thought we wound up with self-storage or something.
On the south side of that street, maybe, but the north half of PUD 1748, I believe, is a strip mall.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I should have confirmed. I was only talking about the south, but at any rate, I do believe it's commercial because I think I remember when all that to do went on with the oil and gas wells and all that stuff.
Yes.
Palermo Place commercial.
Yeah.
Okay, that was my concern. You know, the EMD lighting and the signage just gives me some pause if it would be possible, although however unlikely that property would be developed residentially. I would be concerned about the signage, but if it's going to be commercially developed, of course, that's much less of a concern. These senior wellness centers are such a wonderful thing. It's hard to believe that they were sort of pushed to the end of the agenda to be billed as out of the MAPS programs because they've been so wildly successful. And they really are a boon to the community, I think.
Well, in a roundabout way, though, you know, Commissioner Powers, it actually served them well because they got allocated extra dollars because MAPS 3 was overfunded.
I think that's true. I think that's true.
Yeah. I was getting ready to ask if anybody from the public wanted to be heard on this. I'll do that now. *9 on your phone will raise your hand, or Alt-Y on your computer. Okay, hearing and seeing none. Commissioner Hinkle, this is your ward, your motion.
I will move approval on PUD 1779 with the 2 TEs being agreed to.
Commissioner Coffee, second.
I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on PUD 1779. Please cast your votes when available. And Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
All votes have been cast. And that application is approved unanimously. Thank you very much to the MAPS group. Item number 18.
18 is case number CE 1031, application to close a portion of Northwest 90th Street located east of North Ollie Avenue and west of North Francis Avenue.
This application would close Northwest 90th Street between Francis and Ollie. If you'll recall, just fairly recently, you saw an SPUD for the south side of 90th to rezone to permit tennis courts, which is a ministry for the church across 90th Street to the north. And the request is to close 90th to allow safe pedestrian traffic back and forth from the church to the tennis courts. Based on comp plan policy to protect open and functioning street grid, staff recommended against closing. Johnson and Associates represents the applicant.
Mr. Johnson, are you still with us?
I am here. Thank you.
Do you have anything you want to add to the introduction, staff's introduction to your item?
Yes, I do. So there's been quite a bit of conversation about this, and we've looked around and made some comparisons, and I'd asked Cindy if I could share my screen. I've got an exhibit I'd like to show.
Cindy, is that possible? Are you able to do that?
Francis will have to allow him to show that screen.
Tim, go ahead and try it now.
Thank you. So you should be looking at my screen, and up on the screen shows the image of what we propose to do. We did meet with Councilman Cooper on this because he's very heavily involved in the renovation of the Britton District, which the fingers of the Britton District come down Western as well as Classen, and this piece of property is in the middle of that. And after further discussion with the councilman, we agreed to do a bigger or wider landscaped area here, which would create a berm and an area for parents to sit. Currently, they sit in the parking spaces on the back of their pickups or behind their cars to watch the kids practice. Anecdotally, I was sitting at the stop sign on Ollie yesterday, and the practice had just finished. It was a little bit before 6 o'clock. So there were several kids on the south side, several parents parked on the north side, and a truck came flying through here about 50 miles an hour while I was sitting at the stop sign. So that's the kind of concern they have. This is a clean shot cut through from Western to Classen. There's very little undulation in the paving, which if you've been up in this area, there are several of the streets that have big dips that really do slow the traffic down. 91st and Classen's one of them, but at 90th and through this area, it's flat. We put together this exhibit kind of showing the block sizes. So a typical grid block size would be up to 1,200 feet long, but typically, 600-800 feet. This block here is our 90th Street block. And so you can see we are a very small grid west of Classen. And the more traditional grid, which is more heavily developed in this area, is more of a 650-foot long grid with the breakups being north and south. So as you can see, by creating this closure, we've not created a hindrance in the grid size or the block size by doing this. And the church owns the property on both sides. They anticipate creating 2 more future courts here. The sidewalk is in here. It is existing here, but not here. They intend to include this and intend to stripe pedestrian crosswalks. They're going to maintain what is now angled concrete parking in here and turn it to 90 degree to save these handful of spaces for users of the facility. And in a like project, this is John Carroll Church and School. And you can see this is similar block size. This is on the northwest side of town. Sorry. And you can see right here the highlighted street that was recently closed through Planning Commission and City Council to create the continuity between these blocks. And so what we're asking for is very similar, not the same. I sent many of you the BCC Tennis Academy ministry page. I'll stop sharing here, Cindy. To just show what an impact it's been to the kids that live in that neighborhood. It's somewhat of an impoverished neighborhood. There's a lot of foot traffic that goes to public transit through here, both up to Britton Road and to Western. And across our site, we're going to maintain both bicycle and pedestrian sidewalks. And we just want to, protect the kids from speeding traffic through that block. And with that, I'd ask for your support on this.
Thank you, Mr. Johnson. Commissioner Powers, this is your award. I'll let you lead our discussion off if you'd like.
I'd be happy to do that. I am very supportive of this application. You all probably know well enough that I'm not a huge supporter of the closing of streets. But I think there have to be times when you balance that off. And we have done that a number of times where the purpose and the results of the development, warrant it. Here, there's, I'm also not, a worshiper of the grid. It's great, it's fine, it's whatever, but it's not the be all and end all for me. Here, you're talking about a very small section of street that is in the middle of plenty of other streets. So there are other ways around this. It's not going to create any hardship for vehicular transportation. And the result, the purpose of it, I think, is so worthwhile. This church has really dug into this neighborhood and is doing so many wonderful things to kind of improve it and uplift it. And these tennis courts themselves and the program that they run is just so very worthwhile. It's a visual improvement. It's still going to have vehicular or pedestrian and bicycle accessibility. It's not going to limit vehicular traffic in any significant way. And as Mr. Johnson indicated, it is, one more little building block in the redevelopment of the Britton area. And I know that they have spoken to and worked closely with Councilman Cooper to make some of these little tweaks and changes to improve the application. And I'm wholeheartedly in support of it.
Okay,
I'd love to add my 2 cents to that as well. I agree. Typically I'm very much against closing streets, except if we're only closing it for cars. I think it's great. I think it'll be a place for people. And I imagine it'll actually be a really cool experience to sit there and watch the tennis courts. As a matter of fact, I think I might write down to visit it once this is finished, just because I think it'll be great. Yeah, I think it'll be a community builder. So full support.
Okay, other commissioners?
I guess I'll be Debbie Downer for once. It's usually not me, but I'll be the one. I don't understand. One, to use the John Carroll example, to me, is taking one coherent part of a campus and connecting it to another coherent part of a campus. This is just tying us to some recreational space. So Tim, can you tell us why traffic calming measures aren't sufficient? Number one. And then number two, can you tell us what outreach has been done for the people who live on 90th who have previously been driving to their house down this street every day and now can't? Because I'm just curious. It seems like for something like this, we should have some more buy-in from those people who are directly impacted before we agree to this permanent change. So those 2 questions.
Yeah, so there are several houses up and down Francis, as well as there's only a handful of houses that are remaining on 90th Street. Some of that, there's been a burnout house. There's commercial property that encroaches from Western to the east that reduces the number of users on 90th Street to a very small handful. This notice went out, and we've not received anything from the neighborhood. Several of the residents that live in the block immediately adjacent to the church property are attendees of the church. The program itself has been widespread, acknowledged through the neighborhood as a very positive thing. So I can't explain why we haven't heard anything negative. I did not go on a door knocking campaign for this, and we, to my knowledge, we've not received any negative comments. To your other question, and as Commissioner Powers also mentioned, the heavier street use in this area is 91st. And I can't explain why, but that's the one, this primary street that's used east-west. Most of the traffic on 90th Street is cut through. I mean, and it's obvious because you see them blast through there over to Western and then turn left or right. And a lot of that happens because of the train that crosses Britton Road. It'll back traffic up on Britton Road past Classen to the east. And so a lot of people cut down through here and cut across to Western to bypass that traffic. So, I mean, that's the best answer I can give you.
I will, I'll at least echo Commissioner Pennington's concerns in two forms, just for us to sort of consider and discuss here. So John Carroll to me is a little different in that, so it to the east is bounded by Western. To the west, it is bounded by Lake Avenue, which then to the west of that is a closed parking lot that serves Carroll. And then beyond that, there's no street. All the homes there back up to each other. So if this were the site that we were talking about today, I think that it makes a much easier argument, kind of like Fred Jones did. That was really easy. Fred Jones wasn't a real street. I mean, it just isn't. It's 2 blocks. I think the challenge that I really have with cases like this, which is kind of what staff, I think, in their basis for denial, it's really about the precedent that you set when you start to close streets along the grid. And I'm just making the argument for the sake of our discussion. When I first came on Planning Commission, I didn't really understand why it was a big deal, frankly. Staff sort of convinced me that it is something that we should be very cautious about doing. And so Commissioner Pennington, to your point, I did ask staff in the pre-meeting today, why, since we used traffic calming measures in Ward 2 previously, which was done at Councilman Cooper's direction, why couldn't we use that here? The answer was those options don't actually exist. They can be made to exist, but there are no tools in the toolbox for us to essentially approve traffic calming measures that would be brought forth. Now, they could go to the traffic commission, they could get angled parking spaces, they could get maybe traffic calming measures, things like that. And to me, when you come in and you argue for disruption of the grid, closing the street, this is staff's words, not mine, is really a 100-year decision. You are closing the street and you're losing it. By altering the makeup of the street through traffic calming measures or angled parking spaces, etc., you're not disrupting the grid permanently. You're altering it because of the use that surrounds it. And I think that's a reasonable thing to sort of think through before you vote on this, because I think staff's concern about precedent is a fair one, in that undoubtedly someone is going to come in and say, you guys closed this street on 90th between Western and Classen, which are 2 major thoroughfares. Why, we want you to approve this. And saying that you did it because you really like the use, I think makes it even more dangerous. I just feel like that creates a potential problem for us down the road when we don't want to do it. So those would be just sort of my sort of counterpoints or thoughts on it. Other commissioners have comments or thoughts on this? I think we could use them at this point.
I'd love to kind of respond to that very last thing you said there, Scott.
Sure.
I think, if we're looking at it and we're saying, well, we just really like this use for it. I mean, I think that's what we do, right? We determine appropriateness. And so for me, that's kind of exactly what's this, why I'm in support of it. We talk a lot about how Planning Commission doesn't work off precedent, but then we talk about precedent a lot as well. So to me, each item is its own separate thing. I looked at this, like I said, normally I'm very against closing streets, but in this case, to me, I just think I think we've gone into the weeds to discuss, you know, these exhibits of similar conditions that Johnson and Associates tried to make helpful, but instead have maybe like taken us down a path that's not helpful to talk about this project. I don't think Bishop John Carroll necessarily matters to my decision. If it didn't exist, you know, would we be having the same conversation? When I just look at this project, again, I just don't have the same questions, and I'm in full support. So I don't know.
Asa, when I talk about subjectivity, what I look at is what is the balance. If you put the use of this facility on one side of a teeter-totter, right, against the closure of a street on the other side, it gets harder for me to tip in favor, because you're making an argument again about the use. There's got to be some public good or some basis on the other side that outweighs for me the heaviness of the decision to permanently close a section of the street grid. And again, I agree with you. We never really set precedent because each case stands on its own, but it gets harder to explain to the public who come in and they say, you guys just did this. You guys just closed this one over here. And now, you're not going to let us, we want to close this for this school or for this purpose or for this church parking lot. And it's a little bit like renaming streets, right? We get into the same type of discussion about renaming streets, and it gets into a really slippery slope at times if you're not careful about the way you evaluate it. So I don't think that we're saying different things. I just want to make sure that each commissioner has the lens they want to use to look at this, and how they balance that on their own would be.
Mr. Chairman.
Absolutely acknowledge what you say too. I agree.
Mr. Chairman, this is Commissioner Powers. I would just note that in the staff report, under item D3, the discussion of the urban low intensity LUDA that applies to this property, it talks about development in this area should provide design that facilitates pedestrian and bicycle transportation. Where it talks about the transit-oriented typology layer, it says the intent is to create unique mixed-use districts. The typology areas are characterized by walkable environment. I think there are other considerations that are on the other side of this question. You're talking about a piece of a stretch of street that is basically, an invitation to cut through traffic. There are plenty of other ways for people to get where they're going over here, and I think that is the balance, frankly.
Yeah, those are good points. Yeah, thank you. Other commissioners have thoughts on this they want to share, or opinions they want to express?
Yeah, this is Commissioner Clare. I just wanted to maybe ask a question, and I am all for prioritizing pedestrians over vehicles. But rather than change how it operates, this is a question for Tim. Did you guys look at basically changing how it is perceived and how it looks? We talked about traffic calming. Is there an opportunity to maintain traffic flow through here, but maybe design it in a way that it operates more as a pedestrian? And I'm thinking tabletop. I don't know what the drainage patterns is here, but is there an opportunity to basically tabletop this between Western,
Francis and Ollie?
Francis and Ollie, and that would serve as a traffic calming measure. If you change the paving type, maybe it's decorative paving, that's probably going to make drivers a little unsure. Hey, is this a through street? Is it a pedestrian way? And they might find another way around, but it would still be open for vehicular traffic.
Commissioner Clare, that's a great question and comment. And so we have been trying for 2 years to get a landing such as you're talking about done in the city, and have failed. There's not currently a vehicle to do that. The only way we could do that would be to make this a private street, to where we would have pavement that would be different than the city would maintain, and a tabletop that the city would also agree they would not maintain it, nor would they support it based on emergency vehicle speed and traveling over a tabletop or a speed bump on an open street. We've run into this multiple times, and there has not been a reasonable a tool of it made available to allow this to take place without making the street private. And so after weighing that and discussing that with the leaders of the church, and talking through the fact that, well, we could do this, we could, like you said, we could put some bump outs to narrow it. There is currently angled parking on the street that does not prohibit the speed of travelers on the street today. In fact, it makes the street on a non-church event feel wider and safer. And I think to specifically break the chain in this case, to create a safe environment for a property owner that owns property on both sides and have created this use specifically through an SPUD, and the church itself lies in a PUD. So the uses of land on both sides are very controlled and very specific. This would lend to the specificness of that use and still leave some parking area that would be private parking, no longer in a public right of way, for attendees of the use that's on the south. So, and I appreciate Janice making the argument for me with regard to, we are attempting to keep both pedestrian and bicycle traffic open here. There's currently a ton of bicyclists in the neighborhood. That's how people get around in that neighborhood. Not everybody has a car. And so this would not prohibit that at all. It would continue to allow pedestrians to use it freely. And I think it would be detrimental to try and do something such as an occasional speed bump that you drill into the asphalt. I just don't see that being a fix in this case.
This is Commissioner Highsmith. I'd love to say one last thing on this for me, which is that this is a trouble we run into a lot because, frankly, I feel like traffic is not providing us solutions. We need some options here, and if there's only one street design that's allowed in the city, everything's a highway. We have to have options for people-oriented streets that support community-based spaces, and we just don't. The street I live on, Cary Street, everybody's familiar with it. It's illegal. We can't build that anymore, and it's crazy. So yeah, I really think this is something we've got to lean on traffic to give us some options. This, other cities can do it. Why can't we? Let's figure this out. It's not that hard.
Hey, so I agree with you 100%. I wish we had alternatives, because that's why my teeter-totter analogy is how I have to balance it. It's just, it's a permanence. It's the permanency of closing a street. What's on the other side of that has got to be really heavy, right? And I wish that there was some other thing that we could throw at this to solve their problem and create a better environment. Because you know what's funny is when you close the street, the truth is the most desirable street to live on at that point is east and west of this on 90th, right? Those homes are going to be the desirable homes in this area because you can't drive through. So, anyway.
I also, and I appreciate those comments, Ace, Commissioner Highsmith and Commissioner Powers too. But for me, I just feel like there just should be a higher standard on our part about the need for cohesiveness between the two sides of the street. And I just am not while I support the ministry, think it's an awesome idea, agree with Ace's sentiment about the need for streets to be more people friendly. I just don't feel like this reason is compelling to say that people need a place to sit to watch their kids while they're practicing tennis, and the only solution is to close the street. Seems like a really low bar, and I can't imagine.
To be fair, Commissioner Pennington, that is not it's not the reason they're closing the street,
Right.
to
Thank
make
you.
a place for people to sit to watch their kids.
But again, we're back to, which is why I asked all the questions about the traffic calming measures as an alternative, because what else is there? It's the ministry is important, so they need the street in between. Do you know how many churches do ministries and have accessory buildings that they have access to across this large city of ours? I'm sure there are a lot. So to me, the reasons why these two need to be connected without a street or for a private street needs to be really more compelling than that. So even though I think the ministry is great, and I understand that Commissioner Cooper is in support, excuse me, Councilman Cooper is in support, but it's likely to have support at the city council regardless of what happens here. But still, I think we need to be considering this differently.
Commissioner Pennington, I'd like to just add
I think
one.
we've discussed this thing and gotten the opinions out. I think everybody's had a fair chance if they wanted to speak up. I'm going to ask real quickly if there's anyone from the public that wants to be heard on this item today. If so, this is your chance to do it. *9 to raise your hand on your phone and Alt-Y on your computer to do it. And I'll pause just a moment to see if anybody would like to engage with us here on this one. Seeing none, I think we're at the point where we should see where we are as a commission and make a motion. I will ask if there are any commissioners that have not been heard on this that wish to be. I want to give you just a chance here to voice any opinion you have.
This is Commissioner Coffey. I just have a quick comment. A number of years ago at Oklahoma City University, we faced a similar situation as this. We were concerned about the number of students and their safety who were crossing Blackwelder Street to get from one building to another. And we were in the process of building the Minder School of Business, which
Oh, did we lose Mary?
I think we might have. Let's hold tight a second.
Mr. Chair, while we're waiting for Mary to come back, I might make a suggestion. If the Planning Commission does want to approve this, one improvement it might be a good idea to provide an easement for pedestrian connectivity, cyclist connectivity through that area, just to make sure that it does provide that. As was mentioned earlier, it is a transit-oriented area, and that would take care of, some of the hesitancy to close that.
So that would be a TE.
Yeah, we could do it.
And the TE would be to provide an easement for pedestrian and cyclist connectivity or access.
Yes.
Yeah, we'd accept that. That's a good request. Thanks, Jeff.
I really want to give Mary a chance to get back on, but I'll just ask while we wait if there are other commissioners that wanted to be heard. I just want to make sure anybody who has an opinion on this gets their chance to speak. So,
can I say in Mary's defense on this, as an OCU alum, she is right that is an excellent example of a street being closed that otherwise would make it hard for pedestrian traffic. And I appreciate that example in particular as an OCU alum. So I know that she's right. And that was a serious issue for those of us who were there on campus. And so I appreciate her using that example. It is good.
Is Mary still signed into PrimeGov staff?
I see her just coming back.
Okay.
Now she's muted.
Am I live again?
There you go.
I'm so sorry. Everything just went blank. Do I still have time for a quick comment?
Of course, we've been waiting patiently. We wouldn't have changed a thing.
Okay, well, at the time we were worried about the safety of our students crossing Blackwelder, which was a main north-south artery between 23rd Street north. We did go ahead and were successful in closing Blackwelder, and primarily we had tried many things suggested in terms of speed bumps and strike zones and so on, which really didn't have much effect on the traffic. But again, our concern was the safety of our students. That did inconvenience a number of people who lived between 23rd and basically 26th Street. And there were a lot of growing pains in the process of us doing that. But I do understand this concern is regard to closing this street. But again, I think we have to look overall at the safety of the students who are on those courts. And I guess that would be my major concern in terms of what would direct my opinion in terms of this particular application.
Fair enough. Thank you, Commissioner Coffey. With that, Commissioner Powers. Oh, Commissioner LaForge.
One thing real quick. It's a really close call to me. I see both sides of this. Very subjective, which I hate. If there were protesters, I mean, our process is to send out notices. Notices went out. People could be here protesting. If we had a lot of people against this, probably sway me, but with no one in objection from the community, that wins the day for me.
Fair enough. Thank you very much. All right, Commissioner Powers, I think we're ready for a motion.
I move for approval of item number 18, CE 1031, with the addition of a TE granting an easement for pedestrian and bicycle access.
Excellent. I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Hinkle, second.
Coffee.
I have a second from Commissioner Hinkle. So I have a motion and a second to recommend approval to City Council on CE 1031. Please cast your votes when available. And Commissioner Powers, how do you vote?
Aye.
And Commissioner Hinkle, how do you vote?
Yes, please.
Okay, all votes have been cast. And that application is approved.
Thank you all.
Thank you. That is the last item on our agenda for separate consideration. So we'll move into additional items on today's agenda. Communications and reports from Planning Commission committees, which I don't believe we have. Planning Commission members, Commissioner Clare.
Yeah, I just want to mention one thing, and I think that last item really illustrates it. You know, several years ago when I was on Traffic and Transportation Commission, I believe we had a joint session to see kind of how we could work together to kind of better both traffic, transportation, and planning policy. And I'm not sure I really have seen anything come of that a couple of years ago. And I think from a planning standpoint, planning commission standpoint, we have a long way to go with how we use our streets as it relates to development and pedestrians and mobility. And I would really, just like we said, we don't have any tools when it came to helping us with the decision here, other than, you know, there's nothing in the streets toolbox that would allow this without it just going private. So I would really encourage us to reach out to Public Works, City Council persons, and nudge them to figure out how we could progress this, that we can at least get some ideas out there for discussion, because it's, you know, we're dealing with the same stuff that we dealt with 5-6 years ago. We're not making any progress. So
yeah, Nate, sorry, I thought you were done.
I was just say that's just something I'd like to see. So
yeah, I thought they were working on it at one time. Weren't you on the commission when they brought it up the last time?
They were working on a traffic calming toolbox,
Right.
and they put together a framework, and they had identified possibly 7 or 8 items to include in that toolbox. Speed tables, speed humps, roundabouts, or traffic circles. And really the only thing that the streets department and traffic engineering would want to consider was the speed humps, and that was going to be paid for and maintained by private entities. So neighborhood associations that wanted to slow traffic were going to be responsible for, you know, the installation and maintaining of these speed humps. So
that'd be great. We love that opportunity.
I will say this, Commissioner Powers, I recently happened to be to catch a local news item on television. I hardly ever watch the local news, but it was about a kind of dangerous curve in the road on Drexel at about 12th Street. And it apparently people kind of zoom down Drexel and they don't make that curve and they end up in people's front yards. And I was delighted to see a little sound bite from the Public Works Director, Eric Winger, saying that, you know, we've got a toolbox and, you know, we're implementing that and it's going to happen. And so maybe we're closer than we know. I would very, very much like to see this nudged along. It's been a long, long time coming, and there's been sort of more than enough work done on it, I think.
Powers, anything you want to add in terms of your Ward 2 specific planning commissioner comments?
No, not really. I'm good.
Okay, Commissioner Coffey?
Nothing, thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Privet? Privet?
Oh, I'm good.
Okay, Commissioner Hinkle?
Nothing here.
Okay, Commissioner Highsmith? Asa, you got anything?
Sorry, I was giving you a thumbs up. I guess I'm not
Oh,
on
I could,
screen.
yeah, I couldn't see. I'm sorry. Commissioner Pennington? Nope. Excellent. Rusty? You got
Sorry.
anything?
No, I thought I unmuted. I muted. No, I do not. Thanks.
Okay, good. All right. And I don't have anything either. So, planning department.
Yeah, I'll follow up on the traffic calming issue and see where we are on that, so that I can report back to you all on that. And then as far as the, so you got your Prime Gov packet this time, and JJ may want to talk more about this, but we did find out that in order for that to work properly, that is, in order for you to be able to make comments in it and say that you need to be using either Chrome or Safari for your web browser. For whatever reason, this software is really sensitive about what browser you use with it. So if you use those and have problems, please let us know so that we can report those and get them fixed. Any new system is a little bit glitchy. So we're finding this is a pretty good system, but it's not without its flaws. So again, Chrome or Safari, and please let us know if you have any issues. And that's all I have.
Thanks, Jeff. I would just say, you know, from some of the comments that you obviously saw that went out electronically, and then from some that, you know, I received, you know, I think the important thing here is that if there is a general desire from especially the city clerk to make changes to the process that are going to affect how planning commissioners have sort of grown accustomed to how we get information, how we prepare for meetings, things like that, that just be communicated further in advance. I think you really put people on tilt as they juggle personal and professional obligations to try to also prepare for the meeting in a different manner starting on a Monday when the meeting's on a Thursday. I know that wasn't intentional. I just think those things, I mean, even little changes that have happened in the way we conduct these meetings, it just really puts, you know, a lot of sand in between the cogs when we're, you know, we're trying to keep moving. The other thing I'll say is, if there is a real desire for a variety of reasons, some of which may be very good for us to move on to this electronic format, I would love to see, you know, an opportunity for planning commissioners to individually engage with staff in sort of a training session. I don't mean a study session. I mean, if they need help learning how to use it, learning how to make marks so they can kind of prepare the way they're used to with the system, that they have the ability to do that. I think that would really help. And there'd be some sort of a rollout. So maybe you say, look, on the December 10th meeting, we're not going to have a packet. And so you've got this amount of time to sort of prepare for how you're going to, you know, how you're going to handle that. I think it makes it much more digestible to everybody than just, you know, oh, by the way, no packet this time.
Yeah, makes sense. And we can We can take our time kind of easing into it. And I mean, I think the goal and the intent is to have a system that's easier for you all to use. But I don't know that there's a particular rush to get it implemented. You know, but you'll have that ability if you'd like, you know, to be able to log in, make comments, and then just pull it up when we get back in the chambers. Which reminds me, I don't know, I don't recall exactly what the status was last time we talked, but I did want to mention that. So November 15th is when the state statute allowing us to do this online system expires, and the word is that that's not going to be extended by the legislature. There are no plans for them to meet or anything of the kind. So it appears that after November 14th or 15th, we will be needing to meet in person. And I've made a request to get as much detail as possible about what the plans are. But what I do know right now is that they will be installing plexiglass. People will be wearing masks, and we do have the ability to use both horseshoes for social distancing. So, you know, I and others can sit on the lower horseshoe, and we can just, you know, expand as much as possible. So there have been other, I think there might be air filters as well. And if there's anything else, I will get back to you, but more information will be coming because I know it's getting close.
Fair enough. And that would make our first in-person meeting then December the 10th, if I'm following your timeline correctly, because we would meet November the 12th. And as a reminder, we only have one meeting in November and one meeting in December.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right.
Could I ask this, Jeff and Mr. Chairman? What's our ability, and I'm not suggesting that we have to have this, but I'm just curious. What's our ability to impose our own standards as far as, you know, our own social distancing, our, you know, how, I'm wondering our ability, is this all just up to the city council and we're just going to follow whatever the city council does we do? Or do we have some ability to navigate this? And if so, wouldn't it be, I think it would be a good idea for us to have a subcommittee or a group of us that are looking at what our procedures are going to be when we do resume in-person meetings.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, if you have suggestions, I mean, we're bound by the law really. And so that's why we have this November 15th deadline, but you know, any and all suggestions to make improvements or, you know, kind of how we run the meeting. Absolutely. I just wanted to let you know that we will bring forth any kind of recommended procedures and guidelines and everything that we're doing to make it safe so that you'll have that information.
Okay. Thanks, Jeff. Development services?
Just to briefly follow up on what Scott and Jeff said, this was our first attempt at putting the packet together using the new PrimeGov. And we've already implemented some changes that will affect the format and the way it looks. And your next packet that's delivered should look just like the packets you were used to receiving. We'll have the item number in the upper right-hand corner, and it should help you navigate the meeting much better. So we're working through it just as you are.
Yep, understand. Yep. Thanks, JJ. Municipal Counselor's Office, Mr. Brummett, I think you're with us. Nothing? Easy enough. Citizens to be heard. Is there anybody that's still online with us that wishes to be heard today on any item, whether on the agenda or not? I don't see any hands raised, and I frankly don't see any attendees that aren't city staff. So with that, unless there's other business, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
Moved.
I have a motion and a bunch of seconds. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Hearing no opposition, we are adjourned. Thanks, everybody. Have a great Friday and weekend. Thanks.
So See ya.